To France now, where police have mounted tight security around the country's main courthouse ahead of the trial of 20 men suspected of involvement in a jihadist attack across Paris nearly 6 years ago. It was France's worst post-war atrocity. 130 people were killed and hundreds wounded when gunmen with suicide vests attacked 6 bars and restaurants, the Bataclan concert hall and a sports stadium. The trial will last 9 months with about 1,800 plaintiffs and more than 300 lawyers taking part in what's been described as an unprecedented judicial marathon.
Les personnes qui sont pas les acteurs du procès forcément attendent.
The people who are not the main participant in the trial are waiting with impatience for the only survivor of the commando unit to speak in order to understand. We know that for now he has not spoken. I have indicated to the victims that it's strongly possible that he will remain the way he has been. They mustn't nourish hope and then be disappointed. They mustn't experience violence once again, supplementary.
Une violence à nouveau supplémentaire. Parce que c'est pas parce que les personnes.
It's not because they will be found guilty and are convicted, or just because they might receive stiff penalties, that the victims are going to feel a sense of relief. The suffering of the victims, they will continue to carry their scars. They will continue to walk through life limping with an amputation of their self-confidence, of their joy in life. I think it will be difficult, at least for those I represent, to really move to other things.
Joie de vivre, et je pense que ça sera difficile, et en tout cas pour les personnes que je représente, de.
All right, correspondent Lakwe OLARINOYE is monitoring events in Paris, and she joins us right now. Lakwe, good to have you on the show. Remind us of those terrible events in Paris in November of 2015.
Good afternoon to you both. So, of course, we know that back in November 2015, France faced its worst ever terror attack in its modern day history, where over 130 people were killed and over 300 people were injured. And that was because of the simultaneous attacks that took place at the Stade de France, the Bataclan concert hall, as well as several other restaurants that led to this trial that's taking place today. And of course, that has shaken France till this day and has changed the whole landscape of how France thinks, behaves and reacts to attacks like this. Since then, they have seen a series of more attacks, but that has been the landmark attack that today we are now discussing the trial that's about to take place.
Okay, Lakwe, it's been termed a judicial marathon, but who exactly is on trial, given that most of the attackers were killed on the night?
Yes, so there's 20 people to stand trial today. 6 of those people are being tried in absentia. 5 are presumed dead. And then, of course, there are 2 people who will be standing out as a part of those defendants, and namely Salah Abdul Salam, who was the main suicide bomber whose suicide vest actually didn't end up blowing up, and he had to almost abandon it and flee to Belgium, where he was later caught after 4 months. And the second man is Mohamed Abrini, who is also standing trial for his involvement in that. And of course, the other 14 are people that are indirectly involved with, constructing and contributing to this deadly attack that has affected all of France.
All right, so Lakwe, what kind of testimony will we hear from these people that are standing trial?
Well, Aaron, there are going to be 2 sides of testimonials that we'll be hearing today. One is of the victims and the families of people who have sadly died as a result of this attack, many of which will be having to open wounds that they have put to one side, that have to remember all those terrible things that happened all those years ago. And to see it and hear it again is extremely traumatic for many. So we will be hearing all of those accounts, including an account from a survivor who is also going to be present. Then, of course, you have those men who are on trial, namely Salah Abdul Salam, who is said to be, non-cooperative. He's said to always remain silent, to say statements like Allah will fight for him, and so on. When he was arrested in Belgium in 2016, where he was on trial and was initially imprisoned, he was said to be very, very silent, very, very quiet and mundane, not wanting to say anything. The only very few words that he was described to have said then was that his silence doesn't make him guilty. So there is anticipation as to what he will say today if he says anything at all.
Now, Lakwe, the attacks had a huge effect on the French national psyche. What kind of changes did it bring to the French approach to terrorism?
Well, definitely there are measures in terms of security and migration and border control. And I'll start off with security. Part of this attack, the integral part of the attack and why it succeeded, unfortunately, was because of the ease of transportation between Belgium and France. The border had, very lax control, which is why people like Salah Abdul Salam were able to move in cars and transport weapons very, very easily. So, of course, that will be reviewed as a result. And it was a huge wake-up call for France. Then, of course, we have the migration of people. France is almost a bedrock for migration from the Calais border and so on to refugees, risking their lives across the Mediterranean from Syria and so on. And we're told that actually part of that migration and refugee transportation, there was a loophole for many ISIS members and ISIS sympathizers to essentially move as a part of that migration. So, of course, that will be reviewed as well. And it's also changed the way in which France looks at migration and its entire refugee policy. And then, of course, we know that they are going to be tightening their security measures across the country. The fact that this happened simultaneously across Paris is still something that is still so shocking to the French officials. So, of course, those two areas will be monitored very, very closely.
Okay, thank you, Lakwe Olarinoye, Arise correspondent, for giving us your insight on that developing story.